Welcome, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Trails ATL Round 3 public meeting. Tonight we're doing North District of the City of Atlanta. My name is Nico Chen with Kaizen Collaborative. We're the design firm supporting the PASS Foundation for this project. At this time, I would like to go over some of the meeting logistics before we start the presentation. For everybody online, please go ahead and sign in your full name and an email address in the chat box. We wanted to make sure we accurately reflect all the attendees. And also for everybody's best listening experience, you will note that your microphone will be muted throughout the presentation. And please also reserve all of your questions or comments to the end of the presentation. We'll have a Q&A session. And lastly, tonight's presentation and the recording of this meeting will be published at trailsatl.com/public-meetings. I believe, Eric, it's going to be published by end of tomorrow. So please make sure you go check out the link. A link will be posted in the chat box shortly. So at this time, I would like to introduce Tara Buckner with the City of Atlanta Department of Parks and Recreation. Tara.
Good afternoon, or good evening, that is. I'm Tara Buckner. I am the urban planner for the City of Atlanta's Department of Parks and Recreation, and I am the staff member assigned to the Trails ATL Plan project. And I want to first thank you for your participation. Tonight, we have begun round 3 of Trails ATL, which is a plan to link the city with safe and inviting multi-use trails. After 7 months of field research, plan reviews, public meetings, focus groups, and stakeholder interviews, we will be presenting your preliminary phase 1 trails for this area. These trails are for all ages and abilities, and to get you to places you want to go in a climate-free, ecologically conscious way that will increase your quality of life and decrease your costs and frustrations. I want to thank you again for all the people that are here, but want to just check and see if we have some representatives from the council member's office or council members themselves. Council members, would any one of you like to speak to say a few words about kicking off this plan tonight? Okay.
Sarah, from what I'm seeing, unless the council members have logged in as iPad, parentheses 2, I don't really see anyone yet, but I will keep monitoring the participants list, and I will let you or Egg know, so we can give some space to council members if they would like to say a few words.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I do see some friends, and again, I thank you for giving up your Wednesday evening for this affair. So I'm going to hand it off to Eric to begin to tell you about where we are with Trails ATL.
Very good. Thank you very much, Tara. Thank you very much, Nico. Welcome, everyone. I'm really glad that you could join us this evening for round 3 of Trails ATL and our outreach to the public, our engagement, our understanding of what it is that you want, what you're looking for, what you don't want, etc. I see a number of names and faces that I'm familiar with, and I'm really glad that you all have decided to join this evening and contribute to this planning effort. So I want to go over an agenda and what we're going to be covering this evening. I'm going to start with some planning updates. That's to bring people up to speed on what we have been doing for these last 7 months together, and what we've been learning from you and how that has been affecting this plan. Then we'll take some time to talk about design guidelines. And that is a sense of like, what do we mean when we say a trail? Like, how wide is that? What is it made of? What are some other issues that would be considered in the design process? We also want to talk about the administration process. So this is a planning effort. How does this planning effort fit into the rest of how city government works? How will this work across the departments? How will this work with city council, etc.? Once we've gone through these pieces, this is the nuts and bolts of the plan. We will come to the preliminary phase 1 implementation plan, and we'll describe how we got to what we are going to propose to you, and then take some time at the end of that to make sure that you have an opportunity to give feedback both this evening and going forward in the different avenues for that. So let's start with the planning updates. We're gonna, because I've introduced myself, or we're about to introduce ourselves, we're curious if you've had an opportunity to attend a previous Trails ATL meeting. So throughout this presentation, we're going to have some poll questions that we pop up. And the idea here is to just interact with you and get some understanding of who we're talking to. So this first poll question, have you attended previous Trails ATL meetings or events? Okay, Nico, let's go ahead and show the results of that. Okay, so about half of you have and half of you have not. So for those of you who I've met before, welcome back. It's great to see you again. Thank you for joining us. For those who are new, I will attempt to do a little catch up for you so you have an understanding of what it is that we're talking about with Trails ATL. All right, so let's start with why. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing Trails ATL? And the answer is fairly simple. In surveys that we have conducted, Parks and Recreation and Transportation, Atlantans have stated very clearly that they want more trails. And that is Atlantans across the city. There was a survey conducted as part of Activate ATL, which was a statistically valid survey, meaning that it represented the geography and the demography of the city very accurately. And in that, the number one, the number one source, not the source, the topic of investment, where people most wanted us to spend the money, was on paved multi-use trails. So that is why we're doing this plan. That is why the city of Atlanta has gathered its forces with the different departments: Department of Transportation, City Planning, Watershed Management, the Beltline, and of course we're led by Parks and Recreation. Tara Buckner and many others in the department have been very supportive. They have hired the Path Foundation, and the Path Foundation is a unique institution. We were born in and we are committed to the city of Atlanta. We've been in business for over 33 years, and all we do is trails. We plan, we design, and we build trails. We have planned trail networks across the state of Georgia and beyond. We have built more than 327 miles of multi-use trails in those 33 years. We have raised more than $85 million from the philanthropic community to match over $350 million in public money to build those trails. I'm very proud to be a part of this team, and I want to give a special shout out to our founding member and Executive Advisor Ed McBrayer, who had the vision to start this just before the Olympics and to help put Atlanta on the map in terms of places where it's safe and inviting to walk and bicycle. We are supported, and you see here on the call tonight, Nico Shen from Kaizen Collaborative. Kaizen has long been a partner with the Path Foundation, and we are very thankful for their support. So that's a little who we are. Let's find out a little bit more about you all. If you would, Nico, please call up poll question number 2. And in this, we'd like to know, what is your home zip code? And if you can see, there's a little slider here. You can slide down to select your zip code. Right.
I can see
Okay,
the
Nico.
numbers still growing, so
I
let's give
see.
folks maybe 10 more seconds to complete the poll. All right. Thank you.
All right, let's see what we're looking at here. All right, so I'll scroll up and down so you all can see. Scoot this over here. So 30342 is a good representation. So that is North Buckhead, north and east of Chastain Park. 30324, 27. Okay. Right, how are we in 30305? A little bit there, 30327. Okay. Sense here. It looks like we're best represented by North Buckhead. So that's fantastic. Thank you all very much. All right. Now, it's important for folks to know, and especially for folks who are joining us for the first time, when we talk about multi-use trails, we are talking about trails that are designed for all ages, 8 years old to 80 years old, all abilities. That includes people in wheelchairs, people pushing strollers, people using walkers. This is for everybody. Multi-use trails are for all ages, all abilities, all Atlantans. So we need to keep that in mind when we're looking at these trails and assessing where we should put them and etc. Now, there are a couple of types of trail. So I'm going to describe this. There are 2 main types of trail. There are greenways. Greenways are park-like trails. So it's basically you have a feeling of being in a park, but you're on a trail. So you're going somewhere. And then there are street trails. Street trails there are a wide variety of street trails, but we've categorized them into 3 main groups. Side paths, which is the middle photo here, number 2. We've got basically a wide sidewalk separated by a substantial physical buffer between the trail users and traffic. The idea, again, is that people feel safe, they feel welcome in the space, they're comfortable with their friends and family members being there, etc. We can't do this in every setting. And so when we can't, we look at the other options. And the 2 main other options that we look at are what we call streets for all. And a street for all is typically will have a sidewalk, and then it will also have some part of the roadway that has been set aside for people biking, using scooters, etc., so that all of those modes are accommodated. We attempt to do that in a way that has limited, if no impact, on traffic operations. That is a key goal of ours as we're thinking of street trails. Then in the box number 4 here, you see shared streets. Now, shared streets are low volume, low speed neighborhood streets where we know that we can stripe off a piece of that street and make that safe and comfortable for people biking and walking. So those are the when we say trails, these are the kind of buckets of them. You'll see us reference greenways and street trails, and I want to make sure people understood the difference between those. Now, when we're looking at the city of Atlanta today, we have an existing trail network. And what you are looking at here are about 107 miles of greenway and side path trails. So remember those four, we're looking at the two premium ones, right? Greenways and side paths, and I'll describe why we do that in a little bit. Those 107 miles of greenways and side paths provide 10-minute access to about 40% of Atlantans. And when we say 10-minute access, we're intending that you can typically walk outside your front door and walk within 10 minutes to have access to a trail. So 4 in 10 Atlantans gets that experience today. The goal of this plan is to expand that number as much as possible. I did want to make clear that those 107 miles include trails that are already built or have funding and are programmed to be built in the next few years. So we have been working with you for 7 months, and it has been a fantastic journey. I've been so honored to get to work with a number of you, learn from you, learn about the different neighborhoods of the city, from the north to the west to the south and the east. It has been just fantastic. And we've done 3 rounds of outreach. Round 1 we did in the spring, and we asked 2 questions. What kind of trail do you want to be on, and where do you want it to go? That's the base of the work that we're doing. Then in round 2, we came back to you and we presented some ideas because you told us where you want to go and how you want to get there. And then we looked at the entire city. We said, well, where could we conceivably put a greenway or a street trail? Like, from our experience of planning, from our experience of living and driving and walking and biking in the city, where could we lay out a network that would serve what citizens have told us they wanted? We also, in round 2, asked, how should we prioritize those trails? Because when you look at those street trail opportunities and those greenway opportunities around the whole city, there are hundreds of miles of them. That can't happen all at once. That will take many, many, many years to build all of that out. And that is a discussion that is ongoing with the citizens. This is far from a one and done discussion. But that was that round 2 piece. Now we're in round 3. And round 3, we came to you and we asked you about those trail opportunities and got feedback. And we heard from some of you, you were really excited about some of them. Other ones you were not excited about. Some people were very opposed to some of those street trails, so we took some of those off. So that is the basis of this next step, which is, where should we go first? Right? So we're taking all of the possibilities, and now we're starting to select them to see what can we do over the next 10 years or so. And we also want to talk to you about the design guidelines. So this is that's been our planning exercise so far. I want folks to understand that. In addition to these public meetings, we have had a lot of focus groups and stakeholder meetings. So we've met with Atlanta Police Department, the public schools and private schools, the community improvement districts like Buckhead, Midtown, Downtown, Upper West Side, etc. We've talked with all of the colleges in the city, with the parks and the friends of the parks and the conservancies. People with disabilities have been key constituents, and we've had really useful focus groups involving people with disabilities who've really taught us a lot about what is the experience of being in a wheelchair in the city and how might trails help them get around and enjoy the city. We've talked nature. We've talked to the mayor's office, housing, so not only housing advocates, as in people looking for affordable housing, but also just general housing developers, and what does the future of that development look like, and how can trails play a role in making new housing developments attractive, whether they're affordable or market rate. So that's been a bit of who we've been talking to and how we've been doing it. I wanted to share the results of the surveys. Each of those rounds of outreach, we are including a survey. This round 3 also has a survey, and we will be linking to that at the end of this presentation. But in those, remember, round 1, we asked 2 questions. What kind of trail do you want, and where do you want it to go? So in that first question, what kind of trail do you want? It was very clear. People wanted greenways. This was 1,500 respondents. And 1,500 people, 98% of them would feel comfortable recommending a greenway to their friends and family members to use, to walk, bike, be on a scooter, use a wheelchair, push a stroller, etc. People like those greenways. And Atlanta has some really good examples of greenways, and I think that's why. People have been on the Beltline, they've been on the Silver Comet, Stone Mountain, Path 400, and they say, this stuff is great, that's what we want. They're also okay with side paths. So you can see there 75% would recommend a side path to friends and family members. Those are very good numbers, right? So a side path, the idea of a side path is to create as much of that greenway experience as we can adjacent to a road, and do as good a job to make people feel safe and invited to that space. Then we go on down the list. The less protection we have, the less people want it. And the less people are willing to recommend to their friends and family members to use it. So bike lanes that have some level of protection, some vertical posts or something, that still gets a plurality. People are okay with that, but you're starting to see, they're not as comfortable. You take away that vertical protection and the support plummets. People are not comfortable on unprotected bike lanes. So this is what the people want. Remember, this is 1,500 people who've taken this survey, and these are the numbers. This is what they're telling us. So we're keeping that in mind. Basically, where can we build greenways and side paths? And where we have to, where can we build some kind of a bike lane with a vertical separation? That's what the rest of the plan then is focusing on. That doesn't mean there aren't other options, but that's really the focus of the rest of the plan. Then where do people want to go? So real clear, commercial areas was a big number 1, followed closely by number 2, parks. People wanted to go to their grocery store, go to a restaurant, go to a bar, go meet their friends, go to those social spaces together by walking, biking, etc. They also want to go to their parks in that way. They want to be able to go out their front door and walk or ride to a park. They don't want to have to get into a car to drive to that park. They'd like to have something closer to their home. Beltline, obviously, Beltline has been a smash success, and people want to have access to that. They want to be able to get to MARTA, both the train and the bus, and they want access to schools. And I've been so touched by getting to talk to parents, students, teachers, faculty, and staff at these schools, whether they're private or they're public. There's a lot of enthusiasm for trails and getting kids to school in those locations where that makes sense to do that. And there are a lot of those locations around the city. So that was round 1. Round 2, we asked a different series of questions, and we wanted to confirm, should the city make building trails a priority? We knew that people wanted that, but we felt an obligation to just make sure, like, is this really, are you still good with us doing this? Yes. The answer is yes. 90% said yes, the city should make building trails a priority. And there's a small number, 9%, said yes if you consider safety, if you consider access to jobs and transit, if you consider access to housing. if you consider the impact of displacement potentially that trails could bring. 99% are yes or yes if. That's pretty good. I feel like I'm cooking the books. I'm not. I'll share the data with you for sure. How should the city prioritize where to build trails? So should we build trails? Yes. All right, great. How should we prioritize? What criteria should we use when we're establishing a list? What's important to you on this? And number one, where the maximum number of people can get access. And I like that, right? We don't want to build a trail nobody's going to use. What's the point? Why waste the time, the money, the effort? We want to build a trail where people want to be, and that is reflected in that answer. But there are also other ones, right? We want to extend the existing trails. We have some trails that have some gaps in them, or we have some trails that aren't complete all the way to the end. So Path 400, for example, we're working on that now, but it's not done. Proctor Creek Greenway, South Peachtree Creek Trail. These are trails that have been started but haven't been completed. So there's a desire in the community to finish the work that has been started. And then looking at the other ones, areas with historically low public investment and areas currently underserved by trails. And so those are, I've realized after we structured these questions that those are similar answers, but we might have, we've got people in the room tonight who live in Buckhead, and Buckhead is an area that has historically not had as much public investment as other parts of the city. But so have neighborhoods on the other side of town that may be low wealth neighborhoods. They also have not had as much public investment as other parts of the city. So it's a really interesting piece on that angle. All right. So here's another poll opportunity. And the question here, so we've talked about all these trails. Should the city seek to link together its parks and green spaces with all ages, all physical abilities trails for the purposes of recreation and transportation? That's a mouthful, but think, link parks. Should we link parks? Is that something that would be useful for you all? Would you enjoy being able to go from park to park to park? Nico, I'll let you assess when it feels like the...
Sounds good, yes. Yeah, I see most of the participants have answered, so I'll go ahead and end the poll. Oh, we got one more. Okay, I think we are good to end the poll.
Okay. Quite a few people saying yes. There's still some who are unsure. And part of the purpose of this meeting is to talk about some of those things or to communicate with you in some fashion about that, either through surveys, you send me an email, we have we talk at the end of this meeting, etc. But thank you, that's important information. Okay. So some design guidelines and the administrative process. The design guidelines are important and they're a little wonky, but I want to spend just a little bit of time here to describe to you what we're talking about. And a couple of things I want you to know. One, this presentation will be available on our webpage so that you can access this information whenever you'd like. Two is that we will be generating a report. And I will be writing a report, and that's going to be reviewed by a lot of our internal team members, our core team. We've got a technical advisory committee. They're going to weigh in on it. And then we're going to bring that out to the public for comment. And there will be time for the public to review that, ask questions, make comments, make suggestions, etc., before it is finalized. But big picture, this is what we're talking about. The goals, when we're talking, that's important, is we want to make sure that the design reflects what we are attempting to do here. So we're promoting health and well-being, alternative transportation, equitable access, meaning everybody should have access to this trail network. We want to be sure to protect our natural environments. That's an important one. I know it's important to a lot of you as well. We want to support affordable housing because affordable transportation and affordable housing make for an affordable life. And then we also want to design for long-term maintenance. We want to take the burden off the future to the best that we can so that we're building quality pieces now that we don't have to spend a bunch of money on in the future fixing, or they're broke and then we don't get to use anymore. Those are the main goals when we're talking the guidelines. Now, the key concepts, there are typical materials, typical widths. We've got the environmental component. So let's talk about some of this. The typical materials, these are paved multi-use trails. That does not mean that there can't also be nature trails. So these are two systems that are adjoining one another. They're not the same. And in fact, the Parks and Recreation Department will be doing a natural trails plan beginning at some point next year. And those are nature trails. Those are kind of smaller dirt paths that might lead you to something like to a creek or to a really pretty place that's a little more private. But they would come off of this network of primarily hard surface trails. And when we say hard surface, primarily concrete. Concrete is the easiest to maintain, easiest to construct. We'll also, there are places where asphalt is used. We'll consider hard-packed dirt and slate chips in certain circumstances. Depending on those last ones are likely when those are required by the environmental regulatory agencies. Typical widths, 12 foot is standard for us, but there are a lot of trails that are 10 feet. So especially when we're doing a side path in a neighborhood setting, we'll look at 10 feet for those with a substantial landscape buffer. We really like a good landscape buffer for those street trails because there's two things there. One, the user feels better, and two, it's prettier. It just makes for a softer environment. You can plant shade trees there. It just really beautifies a street that otherwise might not be so beautiful. When we're talking environmental, trees are very important to us. I got into the business because I want to bring people to trees, not because I want to destroy the trees in the process of bringing them to it. So that's the focus. And when we are going into a space and we are also planting trees, which is a big piece of what we do as well, we look at native shade trees. That's perfect. And then also a native seed mix on those landscape buffers. We follow all the laws, all the rules, all the environmental regulations, including the City of Atlanta's tree ordinance, including the state of Georgia's stream buffer. Safety, so these are part of the design guidelines as well. We will recommend lighting and security cameras, but we won't say that they have to be on every single trail. There are trails where lighting may not be appropriate. If we're in a natural setting, we don't necessarily need lighting, or we don't need lighting 24 hours a day, right? So we can install lighting and turn it off at a certain time, like every night at 8, it goes off. Maybe every morning it comes on at 6 a.m. or whatever. We pick a time that works for the community. Atlanta Public Schools has told us if you want to use these trails for kids to get to school, you will have lighting. And so we'll work with them on what those time frames are. And then we work with the community on what they would like to see in terms of that lighting. Is that 24 hours a day with some dimming when there's nobody around? Or do they just shut off entirely at a certain time? Security cameras, that's another important one. People have concerns about security, entirely reasonable in our society. It's important to note that our security professionals have told us very clearly there is no correlation between the existence of a trail and an increase in crime. There's no evidence of that. And if anything, the professionals tell me, and this is in the City of Atlanta, DeKalb Police, Dunwoody, Chamblee, East Point, etc., that if anything, trails bring eyes to the street, and those eyes to the street have a positive impact on crime. They reduce the incidence of criminality. I can't say specifically if you build a trail, your crime's going to go down, but I can say that it is, there's no evidence it's going to go up. Oh, and the last piece, these are guidelines, right? So there's flexibility in that. And I want to make sure these are guidelines, not requirements. Okay. All right. So let's take a minute. Let's get some feedback from y'all. Poll question number 4. What is your biggest concern about a trail network and what we'll be talking about, what you've seen so far? So Nico, let's put that up. We'll give this one a minute. It's gonna think about it.
I'm seeing numbers slowing down. I just got a few more, so I'll wait for another maybe 5 to 10 seconds to close it. All right. Go ahead and pull the results. Eric?
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, let's take a look here. So we've got this is a nice kind of broad perspective here, and thank you all for answering these. Some are anxious for the trails to get built. That's great. The next, we've got maintenance after the trails are built. And yeah, we know that's important, and we honor that. And part of the report will include a detailed maintenance strategy on that. In fact, I've got some meetings set up with the people who run maintenance for Parks and Recreation, for example, coming up soon, and we're going to do a deep dive into what the current practice is and what is recommended going forward. Next, we've got environmental impact. I know that that is a concern, and I hear you. I know we've had some meetings and in North Atlanta, and people were concerned about that, and rightfully so, especially leaders in the space who've worked hard to create green spaces and to defend those green spaces. And so we hear you on that. I want you to know that. User safety in relation to accidents, crashes. An awkward way of saying, I'm still a little afraid people are going to get hit. And thank you, because safety is crucial in this, and the design is really, that's an important component of that. Okay, very good. And crime is, okay, so there are just a little bit of concern there, but that did not rise to the surface. So, okay, thank you very much. All right, so the administrative process and timeline, this is super wonky, but I want you all to understand how these pieces fit together. I know some of you have been involved in the comprehensive development plan update that is managed by the Department of City Planning, a fantastic planning effort that they've done around the city. Really, really informative. It's got a lot of people out, and they've done such a good job that we piggybacked with them on our round 1, and I'm so glad we did. I got to meet a lot of you as a result of that. That was focused on the neighborhood planning units, and that was really effective. So we're going to be a part of that plan. That's that one at the bottom there. part of the comprehensive development plan and the zoning code. That is our intention with this plan, is that once this is approved, that then we continue to work with city planning to incorporate this stuff in, so that it gets baked into the city's pie. Same thing with the comprehensive transportation plan. So this is important, especially those street trails that we've talked about. Some of those street trails, I know that when you live in a neighborhood and you're used to a certain way of doing things, and somebody comes in and says, oh my goodness, we're going to build a bunch of trails over here. That is triggering. And so I want you all to know, this is important, that this is a process. Those street trails will be a part of that transportation plan update that begins next January. That's a year-long process. So none of that stuff is going to get done until we've had more discussions with you. And I just want you to know that that is the case. And then, so where we're at, we're developing, we're refining this phase 1 implementation and Greenway plan, right? That's where we are right now. We want to deliver something to City Council that says, we've talked to the whole city. These are the opportunities that are out there. We want to preserve those in some fashion, but we know that we can't do all those now. We want to focus on what can we do in the next 10 years, and that's that implementation plan component. All right, so getting closer to the good stuff. Preliminary phase 1 implementation plan. Preliminary draft, not done yet. So this is an interactive discussion with you all. And we're bringing these ideas to you. As we brought those trail opportunities to you, you gave us feedback. Now we're going to bring you kind of dialed in some stuff that reflects the feedback that we've heard. And we want to make sure that we're getting it right. So that's why this is preliminary. So what's our process? Round 1, you told us where you want to go and how you want to get there. We took that information, we came up with some opportunities, we presented them back to you in round 2, and then we've taken the feedback that you gave us in that round 2, and that's the public meetings, that's the stakeholder meetings, that's the focus groups, that's the phone calls I've had with some of you, the meetings that we've had, and we've baked this into this preliminary phase 1. That's this round 3. That's what we're talking about. This considers administrative capacity, like do we have enough people to actually build this stuff? And a possible budget, like how much would this cost and how could we pay for it? So as a reminder, these were the trail opportunities that we shared with you. So these are street trail opportunities. These are greenway opportunities. We did this throughout the whole city. Like these are the opportunities that are out there. From these, we will come up with a preliminary phase 1, and that's what we're going to do next. But I wanted you to know how this is built. When we say preliminary, this means not final. Public will have opportunities for feedback, including tonight, including through the survey. This won't be voted on by City Council until spring next year. So there's a lot of opportunity to talk yet. Your input tonight, your input in the surveys, your input in the emails, all of that is a key part of our analysis and will lead to that final recommended project list. When we say phase 1, what do we mean? Phase 1 means what we can conceivably accomplish in 10 years. It also means there will be a phase 2, but it's going to be a ways out, right? Again, not all of the stuff is going to happen at once. Implementation, that's our process, right? That's that 6-step process where we get approved, we get some funding available, then we move into design and engineering. We come back to you. We come back to the public in the design phase. Say 30% design. Here's what we're thinking. What do you think? Love it, hate it, move it, shift it, whatever. And then we do, right? Environmental permitting, contractor procurement, construction, delivery of the project. That's the process. Okay, now the good stuff. The result of the work. the result of your input, your feedback, your direction. What do you want? What you don't want? These are the trails that we are looking at as a preliminary phase 1 in the north districts of the city. This is what we want your input on. Talk about some of these. We'll go around the horn. So we have the East Palisades Greenway up on the top. I don't know, are you able to see that up there on your screen? I hope so. So the East Palisades Greenway, that runs along the Chattahoochee River. That includes a line that goes in front of the Lovett School. I don't know if you all have had an opportunity to be there. It's right on the river. It is so amazingly beautiful. And the folks at the Lovett School said, you know, we don't even really go there because it's not, we didn't really set it up that way. They would potentially appreciate a trail that would go along that would connect West Paces up to Northside Parkway, cross Northside Parkway, follow the river behind the post apartment complex there, behind the Trinity School, underneath the interstate, to come up on the to the park, the East Palisades Park that's up there in a trailhead. So we would basically be extending that trail along the river. And parts of that will have amazing views of the river. This is not the Riverlands Trail. That's a different trail. The Riverlands in this part of the Chattahoochee is on the Cobb County side. But this would be an opportunity for North Atlanta to have a little slice of river action as well. North Side Trail. So this is a trail along Northside Drive and Northside Parkway, starting down here at where the existing trail ends, north of Bobby Jones, a golf course. Following along, we've got schools along the way. We've got large religious institutions. There are commercial districts. There are more schools. There are opportunities here. And we feel this is a really good foundation for Buckhead. This is the main thoroughfare. It would give people alternatives for getting around. It would make it safe on a street that is currently impossible to bike on. You don't want to bike on North Side. Don't want to do it. Nobody would send anybody there. So we want to do something where people would feel good about being there. And then from that, you can branch out into your neighborhoods on the streets that you already have. And we would work with you over time on finding which of those streets might be good candidates for additional street trail activity. Staying in the north, we've got the Wyuka Trail. And these names are draft, by the way. I want to make sure these are draft names. This is just Eric making stuff up, right? They're named after things, but if folks feel strongly that it should be something else, you know, if we want to call, we could name this after someone, that could be a possibility. Or if there's a neighborhood or there's something else people feel really strongly about, those are great opportunities for naming. But just so people understand, the Wyuka Trail's on Wyuka, right? That's the kind of no-brainer on that one, but maybe another name. Wyuka would begin in by the Phipps Plaza shopping area, and that the core of that commercial district, follow Roxborough, cross Peachtree, and then track Wyuka all the way around where it connects to Path 400. A lot of this area already has bike lanes. And so in this instance, what we would be looking at is creating a side path. So, you know, we'd look at the width of the road. We would see where we can skinny some things up and stay within the existing public right-of-way the entire time. There will be no need for acquisition on privately owned parcels along that trail. And so that's helpful. We want folks to know that. And then that brings us up to Chastain Memorial Park. So we've got a fantastic connection, safe, inviting side path that connects Chastain Park on the north side to Path 400 down to the Phipps Plaza area. This is already a place that gets a fair bit of traffic, but bicycles are in the road. Drivers are a little sketchy, so it doesn't feel great, and it could feel great. So that's why we think this is a tremendous opportunity on Wayuka Trail. We also know that there are neighbors who have done a lot of work in this area. So this is North Buckhead Civic Association has talked with its neighbors and the members over a number of years about this opportunity. So we want to continue this discussion, support those efforts and the planning that has been done, and promote Wayuka Trail. Similarly, what we're calling the Chastain 400 Trail. Chastain 400 is on the south side of Chastain Park, cuts over to Roswell Road and that commercial node at Roswell, Habersham, where those roads come together, cut back on Old Ivy, go around by the elementary school, and then tap back into the Wayuka Trail. So we're creating a network in this part of the city, safe and inviting ways to get to these key destinations that you've told us you wanted to go. Your commercial districts, the Big Trail Path 400, your parks. Wow, that can be really beautiful and a tremendous opportunity. The third one in this part of the city, the Nancy Greenway. So Blue Heron Nature Preserve sits on one end, Chastain Park sits on the other, Nancy Creek flows in between. There is a sewer line that tracks that. We could follow the sewer line. We need to work with the private property owners who are there, the greenways in those conditions. That's privately held property. But in our experience, and if you can picture it, that is where the MAA Chastain has a large apartment complex. In our experience, working with developers, working with multifamily property owners, they tend to really like trails. Trails bring value to a property. They make it more appealing. That helps them maintain their existing tenants. That helps them maintain their rent base. So we are hopeful that that will be an effective strategy for that Nancy Greenway. Moving on down, we have Shepherd Trail. So Shepherd Trail would begin at where E Rivers Elementary School is on Peachtree Battle, run along Peachtree Street in front of the Shepherd Center. So for those of you who don't know, the Shepherd Center is a phenomenal institution in the city of Atlanta. It is for people with disabilities that they were born with or as a result of an accident, spinal cord injuries, etc., serious mobility challenges. And they've got some of the best and brightest medical professionals who understand these things, rehabilitation professionals in the world. And we have them here in Atlanta, and there's a large population of people in wheelchairs who go to the Shepherd Center. And today on Peachtree Street, they cannot roll down the street. They get stuck in so many ways, and I've heard so many stories, and it is so disrespectful and so unnecessary. We can do something in front of the Shepherd Center, connecting from Peachtree Battle all the way along that side of Peachtree Street that is respectful of people in wheelchairs, in front of the premier rehabilitation facility in the American Southeast. That to me feels like a have to have. And in honor of that, I'm suggesting, again, this is a draft, that we call it the Shepherd Trail, and that we thank the people for their service. When people in wheelchairs can get places, so can everybody else. That's the wonderful thing about it. That trail would wrap around, go through Ansley Park is what we are proposing. We want to work with the Ansley Park Civic Association on the exact alignment on there. We are proposing the Prado. The Prado is a very wide street, and we think there's a lot of really interesting things that we could do that would not affect traffic operations, not affect parking, that could add value in terms of stormwater, that could plant shade trees and beautify that street. We could really make that something special in a neighborhood that really is truly special. Atlantic Trail would branch off of that Atlantic Trail. The idea there is to connect that lower Buckhead, upper Midtown area to Atlantic Station, which right now, if you're biking and walking, is very painful or next to impossible to break through. You have to go all the way around to get there. And so people don't, right? So this would be a connection between Piedmont Hospital area and Atlantic Station. And we can do that a couple of ways. We could tunnel underneath that, those train tracks that are there. That's a Norfolk Southern line that runs over the top. And the Amtrak line, I think that's Norfolk Southern, or is that CSX? Tunnel underneath it, whoever they are, and then that's one option. Or we use an existing bridge that is unused. Our understanding is that might not work, so we want to have that tunnel option. But the idea is to break through that barrier, that railroad barrier that disconnects Atlantic Station from the entire northern part of the city. Great opportunity. We've had a lot of positive feedback. That same trail takes us all the way down to Georgia Tech, and the fantastic work that Georgia Tech is doing on their campus for biking and walking. It's phenomenal. If you haven't been recently, go when the students are not there so you don't get stuck. But wow, it is just spectacular, the work they've done. Or go when the students are there and you can see all of these students on bikes and scooters. It's the future and it's absolutely beautiful. Piedmont Cheshire Trail. So this is going from where the Piedmont Trail will end at 15th Street. So this is a project that Midtown Alliance is working on currently. We want to extend that energy along the side of Piedmont Park all the way up. So we get to Cheshire Bridge and take the Cheshire Bridge all the way out. Cheshire Bridge is on the cusp of tremendous change. It has already started to change. We want to make sure that all of the many thousands of new residents on Cheshire Bridge have an alternative to sitting in traffic, because that traffic on Cheshire Bridge, already tough, is going to get much tougher when there are thousands of new residents there. So we want to make sure that those folks have an alternative, that they don't have to contribute to traffic congestion, that they can instead contribute to a greener, healthier, more sustainable way of transportation. Couple of access points to the Beltline: Peachtree Hills, Wimbledon access. Those are great opportunities for us as the Beltline gets built out in this part of the city. Peachtree Hills access is next to there's a senior living community there, the Terraces, beautiful place that is opened not too long ago. We already have an easement there. What can we do in that space? We want to make, when we go into that, we'd want to make sure that we're planting trees. If we have to pull any out along the way, there's some pines that may have to come out, but could we plant some native shade trees in their stead? We hope so. We want to look at that. Wimbledon access, there's a little short snippet there between Monroe and the Beltline. We think there's an opportunity for a trail connection there that could continue up the street to Piedmont at that point. We'd work with a neighborhood to see how they wanted to do that. But you can see how important these points are for accessing the Beltline. We want to make sure people can get to that Beltline safely. South Peachtree Greenway, or the South Peachtree Creek Trail. This is already built in the DeKalb County part. So on the other side of Emory University, we're extending it, the Path Foundation, working with DeKalb County, extending it eastward to what used to be the North DeKalb Mall, now called Lula Hills, extending it another direction, so that there's a network over there. We want to be able to tap into that network eventually, work with Emory University, stakeholders there, work with South Peachtree Creek Conservancy on their plans, and we're supporting their effort in this. I know there's been a lot of work and a lot of communication there. There will need to be more, but we're supporting that. We see an opportunity there. A couple more. Virginia Trail. This is connecting from the Beltline. So this is there's some neighbors who live in the area here. Midtown Neighborhood Association been very active on transportation, as they should be, because they've got some of the best transportation in the whole American Southeast, with the Beltline there, the park, that cycle track. They can walk, they can bike. It's really beautiful. They see an opportunity to connect from the Beltline up on some Georgia Power property to Virginia. Then we want to continue that energy, continue that all the way to the commercial node, the Virginia Highland commercial node, which currently has a real parking problem. Like if you drive over them, like, where are you going to park? Well, you don't. And so we miss an opportunity to connect that commercial node to the Beltline. So we want to find a way to connect that so that people can walk and bike to that commercial district, enjoy the benefits, the wonderful restaurants, coffee shops. There's like fantastic chocolate store over there I love to go to. How do we connect those pieces? And we think we can do that on the Virginia Trail. Piedmont, Grant Park, Piedmont Park. You know, two of the three biggest parks in the city. We want to be able to connect those with a trail that's clearly defined so that somebody can be on a bicycle in Piedmont Park and ride to Grant Park. Stunning way to see the city, stunning way to see these two beautiful Olmsted-inspired and designed parks that the city is fortunate to have. And wouldn't it be wonderful to connect those with that Grant Piedmont Trail? Last but not least, the Decatur Trail. Now we're on DeKalb Avenue, Decatur Street, downtown DeKalb Avenue. It goes to Decatur. And the idea here is to just make that a safe and inviting facility. We've tried for years, can't quite get it there. We're getting closer at step by step. We just want to push that over the edge and make sure that that is a facility that is really useful for the many thousands of people who live in DeKalb who could come downtown and enjoy the fruits of downtown on bike or walking. Okay. So, poll question. We just talked about 13 trails, I think. Let's put up a poll. I'm curious. What three of those are you most excited about? Or you don't like any of them, right? That is we want to make sure, like, you might be like, I don't want any of these. But if you do like them, please tell us which ones you're most excited about. So it's kind of, we're taking it as not a vote, it's kind of a temperature check, like, you know, reading the room like a DJ would do.
Eric, I know we're not addressing questions, but I did see Dan submitted one that could be really helpful, is for
Okay.
you to briefly explain the color coding. I know
Oh,
we had that
yes,
question from different
we
parts of
did.
the city
And
too. So yeah, please
thank
just,
you.
on the colors. That would help folks
Thank
to
you.
understand the map.
No, thank you very much, Nico. And thank you for whoever the smart person who asked that question. There's no meaning. The short answer, I know, and all these other maps, so those colors have meanings. And so that was exactly the right question to ask. The background map there, those green lines are greenways and the orange lines are street trails. But the orange, the red, and the purple, they're just to highlight the differences so that if they're close together or they overlap, that you can distinguish which one's which. And I'm sorry, I should have said that earlier. Yeah, but they're trails. And so in some cases, those are going to be greenways, and I call them that. So Nancy Greenway is a greenway. South Peachtree Greenway is a greenway. But these trails are some form of street trail. And they're, you know, we're looking primarily side path, I will say. So I'm going to go ahead and say that. Most of that is side path. The Grand Piedmont Trail will have to be a little more flexible as we get closer to Piedmont Park. We think that we're going to be creative on Charles Allen. We don't want to take any trees. Don't want to take any parking. Not trying to start a war over parking. Parking is an emotion. I don't want to tap people's emotion like that. But most of those trails are going to be some form of side path. Remember, side path, 10-foot-ish sidewalk, basically landscape buffer roadway. So they've got that substantial buffer. Remember, those are the first two that people told us they wanted, greenways and side paths.
All right. Hope everyone had the time to look at the map. It's kind of a big area to look at and a lot to
It is a big area.
digest. But yeah, I think I'll go ahead and close the poll.
Give it 10 more seconds.
Yeah.
Sure. That's a lot. And we so appreciate your time for this, your consideration of this, your input on this, what you've done to help us get to this point, and what you will do to help us get to the next point, right? So I'm thanking you in advance for sharing your opinions, your perspective. We can't do this without you. If you don't want us to do it, if enough people are like, nope, then we won't, right? I mean, Path Foundation, we can build trails all over the place. We're high demand entities. So, but so far people in Atlanta have been really excited about this, and we hope that you will be too.
All right, Eric, go ahead and share the results.
Let's see. Oh, okay. So here's the whole list. So nobody got no votes. Okay. So starting from the top, I see Northside Trail. Northside Trail gets 43%. Chastain 400 and Piedmont Cheshire each get 33, as does Shepherd Trail. Okay. South Peachtree, Virginia, Wyuka. Okay. East Palisades. Very good. Yeah, the Atlantic Trail, and Grant Piedmont, those are trails that are also voted on by, not voted, sorry, shouldn't have said that, wrong word. Enthusiasm metered for the West Atlanta too. So they shared their opinions about that one last night as well. And then Grant Piedmont will be tomorrow night also with South and East Atlanta. Okay, that's good. And we've got, some folks who are like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it. But thank you. And I really appreciate your time and coming to the meeting and letting us know that. That's important. Okay. All right. So great. Now we got all these trails. There's a lot of them, preliminary, citywide. We've gone from the opportunities, which were many. Now we're boiling that down to this preliminary. What are we talking about? What's this stuff going to cost? Are you crazy? 103 miles, preliminary phase 1 trails all over the city, right? That's 103 miles across the city. Of those, about 99 we haven't identified a funding source yet. So the 4, that's Campbellton Road BRT, and MARTA will be building infrastructure along there that will be supportive of biking and walking. We want to call it out in the trail plan though. So it means 99 miles. We're estimating $6 million a mile in the city of Atlanta based on 2024 data. And that is, we might be able to do it for a little less depending on how, what kind of tricks and treats we want. Security cameras and lighting aren't really included in that. So if those are systems that are wanted, and again, that's on a case-by-case basis, a lot of the street trails, we probably wouldn't have those, but the greenways, we might want some of that. We'll work with the stakeholders and the neighbors when it comes time for that. Easement acquisition. So there are circumstances on greenways where we need to acquire and we would need to pay for some small piece. Again, remember, we like to work on public land, and then we like to work on developer-owned land. And developers will often donate an easement, and they might even pay to build the trail because they see the value. They are now part of a network. New development, we might ask new development to pay for the trail as they're building it in areas as they redevelop. So that's something everybody's going to benefit from, they will benefit from financially. And then if there's extensive green infrastructure, so if we're talking, some of the creekside greenways, and there's some stream bank remediation that needs to happen, and that needs to happen anyway, but it would potentially happen as part of a trail project. We want to just be real clear that that stream bank remediation money would need to come from a separate bucket. I will say, when people ask what are the funding sources? Well, certainly grants are a great funding source, and the city's been very good at attracting federal dollars for transportation and recreation projects. And I think our trail network could get some money in that fashion. Those often include money for stream bank work, depending on the source of the funding. The other piece, and this is critical, these are preliminary numbers. In the same way this is a preliminary plan, these numbers will be adjusted after round 3, after we've received your input, your feedback, the direction from the public, and then we will come back and say, okay, this is what we heard, and this is what we're moving forward with. This is how we are strategizing paying for it, and this is what we anticipate the level of budget that we would need to make that happen. Okay, how to give feedback. So this is critical. Round 3 survey. Please take the round 3 survey. This is the best way for you to give feedback. The most valuable way for you to give us feedback is to take that survey, because then we're asking people around the city the same questions, and we're getting answers to them that then we can compare. Right? We can look at different parts of the city where, who's more enthusiastic about this, who isn't, what are what do people want, this amenity or that amenity? Are they excited about this trail or not at all? That really helps us. So please take the survey. This QR code is a direct link to the survey. Please share this with your friends, family members, colleagues, etc., people who live in or love Atlanta and spend a lot of time here. Take that survey and let us know your thoughts. That's crucial. But there's more. There's the survey, but there's also, you can send us comments, trailsatl.com/contact. We will have NPU meetings January and February of next year. And that will be in advance of taking this to City Council. So we'll do the NPU meetings, go to all the NPUs, give a little presentation, and have a discussion about that. And you will tell us what you think. And that will be then part of, before we go to City Council, we go to City Council and say, yep, we talked to all of the NPUs. And that will be myself and Tara and others will be joining you in your neighborhoods to have that discussion. You can send us an email. So there's my email. I'm Eric at Path Foundation. Tara's email is tlbuckner@atlantaga.gov. There will also, and this is a reminder, ATLDOT Comprehensive Transportation Plan Update. Ooh, that's a lot of words. Is beginning, I believe, in January, early next year. 18-month process at least. A lot of opportunity to talk about street stuff. And they're going to talk about the typologies of streets. What kind of street is this? Not going to do every single street in the city, but the big streets. So that Northside Drive, what kind of street is that? What should be on there? Are we allowing parking on Northside Drive? Absolutely not. But, they're going to ask those questions. Is this a freight route? Is it a transit route? Is it appropriate for a cycling infrastructure? We believe it is. We've been talking with GDOT about this already at this exploratory phase. They're open to these concepts. As an example, but those street trail pieces, that's going to be an ongoing discussion with you all. We would like your permission on North Side, right? That's part of what the City Council will be voting on, is to say, Yeah, okay, we can move ahead on north side, but if it's not north side, we're not gonna talk about it. So I know there are some neighbors in District 8. We're very concerned about the street trails. Please know that there will be nothing more done on those until we come back and talk to you about those streets and what is possible, what is desirable, and how we can move forward to create safer and more inviting conditions for everyone. A draft of the report will be available for comment January, hopefully. I'm gonna have to get to work here. But that's the goal, is to get that out to you, because it has to be, right? So you will have a public comment period because that's the law. I don't have a choice around that. You will have a chance to review that. I will make sure that everybody who's attended the meetings knows about this. That's our job, is to get this to you so that you can comment on it and let us know. Then it goes to city council, then it's hopefully, knock on wood, adopted, and then we move into implementation. That's why that phase 1 plan is so important. Okay, where are we at here? All right, so I'm going to pause on this one. We're going to come back to this poll question, Nico. So let's do this first.
Agree.
And
Thanks, Eric.
yeah, so let's see, let's talk about let's do the chat piece. Because we do have, I see Mary Kilgo, you're raising your hand, I see you, and I know there's a bunch of people have been putting some stuff in chat. So do you agree, Nico, that we should read some of those? Let's
Yeah,
try
I
to
think
get
we'll
through
have
some of that.
time. I agree. Yes, I think we'll have
Okay,
time to address some of the pre-submitted questions during the presentation
great.
quickly. And I'll go to you, Mary, pretty soon. Thank you for your patience. So let's get into it. So Jennifer had asked, I'm curious how Shepherd's Trail could be facilitated on Peachtree. Peachtree has already been put on a road diet to wonderful effect. Would implementation of a trail take another traffic lane? That was her question on Peachtree Road, I believe.
On Peachtree, so we're talking Shepherd Trail between Peachtree Battle down south, right? So that is a design detail that it will have to be worked up. That is a GDOT facility. And so we will have to look at traffic volumes, we'll have to look at a lot of features. But I will say, we will put a high priority on the convenience, safety of people in wheelchairs. That has to happen. And if that slows traffic down 5 seconds, I think that's a discussion to have with the community. But we've got to weigh that kind of, how fast do I get to drive down Peachtree? And I will say, as somebody who's driven fast down Peachtree, Peachtree moves really fast. And does it need to move that fast the whole way? Question mark, right? So I don't have an exact answer to you. It's an excellent question, and it will be determined in the design phase. We'll look at the public right-of-way. We'll look at those lane widths. We'll see where we can do as much as we can without impacting traffic operations at all. That's the gold standard. If we can get to gold, that's what we will do. If we can't, we will do the best that we can to minimize the impact of anything that we're doing for the benefit of people in wheelchairs on Peachtree in front of Shepherd Center. Yes. But great question, and yes, I hear you.
Thank you. Lou had asked, there are 3 trails proposed to go to Chesney Park, Wayuka, Chesney 400, Nancy Greenway. He thinks it's too many trails to the park and it would overwhelm the park. I'll skip ahead and let's see, go to the question. The influx of
Okay, that's a good
bicycles can be
comment. Thank you. I hear that.
What type of paths are being proposed on these trails? I kind of think, Eric, this was, Lou posed the question during when you were going through
Understood.
the trails.
Mostly side path, greenways are greenways, and the street trails are primarily side paths, not exclusively, but primarily.
Thank you. This is Dan's question. Is there a meaningful difference? Oh, I think we addressed that. That was the map color one. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Skip, thanks for a lot of the comments regarding amount of visitors to Chaston Park. Since there isn't a question, I'll skip those. Next question is from Lou as well. What about the side path along Roswell Road? This is a commercial corridor and a moderate density housing area.
True. I mean, that's a good point, Lou, and we'll take a look at that. We've tended to shy away from those big streets because they're hard. You know, in the same way the struggle that we will probably have on Peachtree, we would also have on Roswell and further up Peachtree. So we avoided further up Peachtree. You see a lot of the stuff within the commercial improvement district. We're leaving that to Buckhead CID. They've got talent, they've got plans, we're supporting whatever they're doing. This is outside of their stuff, kind of feeding to them. But yeah, that's why we didn't do much on Roswell initially, but I agree, maybe we should take a look at that. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any new questions actually posted in the chat. I will go ahead and ask Mary to please unmute
Great.
and ask your question.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay.
thanks, Mary.
I have two unrelated comments. So I do live in District 8, and I look at this map, and what like immediately jumps out at me is the complete lack of anything east-west, anywhere north of where the Beltline is going to be. And it just strikes me as really short-sighted, given that all we complain about on traffic issues is everything north-south, and there's no east-west connectors. And here we are doing that, in our trail plan. And I know it's difficult winding through some of these residential areas, but I find it extremely short-sighted that we have not figured out a way to do that. So just a comment, no answer required.
No, thank you.
I do know some of the backlash from the NIMBYs in the area. The second one, totally unrelated, but about the lighting, and I think on the greenways, obviously. I appreciate that you have said that you guys will consider what people want. We're struggling with that a little bit right now on the existing portion of the Beltline, Thunder Creek Park, which is basically a nature area, and continuing up to Bobby Jones Golf Course. All of that is essentially a wildlife corridor. And we're very concerned that the Beltline is going to want to light that up, like the rest of the Beltline is. And even the new part that they haven't built yet is going to cut across Peachtree Creek and get over there to where you're showing like that Peachtree Hills access, that general area is all basically wildlife corridor. And so one of the things I don't tend to see in some of the questions, and in fact, maybe in some of the education, because I think this is an educational issue with people, is they're not thinking about things like wildlife corridors, and it's just never occurred to them. So something that you might want to consider, and maybe somewhat related, but in a way, is this shepherd trail. We tried to get bike lanes on that part of Peachtree, and it was completely shunned by people. So it's kind of a similar in a way, right, where people are not really thinking about the benefits that can come from some things like that. So you could easily have put the bike lanes in a nice wide trail for the Shepherd Center people by eliminating one of the lanes, and actually traffic flows better when you don't have that middle lane going in the one direction, because what all that does is encourages people to drive recklessly and spread back and forth between 3 different lanes instead of 2 different lanes. So I just view it as a similar topic where people need education. They need to understand how this stuff works. So nature trails, wildlife corridors, bike lanes, how many lanes of traffic do you really need cars? How do we thread through residential streets so we can get some east-west connectivity? Thank you.
That's, excellent points all. And I do want to just explain a little bit about how the process has worked in District 8. So District 8 doesn't, you see there's not a lot of street trails on there now. We've been working with District 8. District 8 has had, Councilmember Norwood hosted a transportation summit that was very helpful. And so they've got a slightly separate process that they're working through. I know that there are people in the neighborhood who absolutely want safe and inviting facilities for themselves, for their neighbors. And that includes some east-west connectivity that has not gone away. But remember, there's that comprehensive transportation plan update. So those discussions are continuing and ongoing in District 8. So I want you to know that, and I want people to understand that these are important, that the community there feels very strongly about the public assets, the public right of way, how it's used, how it's designed. And that's good. You've got people who are really engaged, but that also means that we have to tread carefully in that space so that we bring as many people along as we can on that, so that people feel like it's theirs. You know what I mean? We want to build a sense of ownership. And I think that's especially important in Buckhead, that people feel like that we're doing it with them and not to them. And to do that, that just takes some time. And so I really want to thank my friends and the residents of Buckhead who've been very engaged in our process, in Councilmember Norwood's process, and who will be engaged in the comprehensive transportation plan update, because that's critical. And yes, for the questions about lighting in natural areas, and those are important discussions to have, and I certainly don't take them lightly at all. I know sometimes decisions are made, with all the input, and I don't always agree with all the decisions that are made, for sure. But we strive in this instance to get as much feedback from you all as we can, and to address as many of the concerns that are raised as possible, while still moving Atlanta forward. Any other questions?
Not currently seeing any. Nancy did comment on it was a little hard to hear Mary, but hopefully, Eric, when you were responding, that Nancy had kind of figured out what was the question. But Nancy, feel free to ask or continue the discussion if you have further questions about what's being discussed here. And I know we are slowly approaching to our meeting end time at 8 o'clock. Eric, it's up to you if you wanted to give folks more time. I'm not seeing
Sure.
any raised hand.
We've got, does anybody have any other questions, concerns they would like to air now while we are together? This won't be your last opportunity, of course, but it is an opportunity if you would like to take the time.
Eric, I am going to put my email address in the chat again, because a lot of people don't see the L when you use the lowercase letters.
E.L. Buckner.
Yeah, and
that's right.
Then I see them and they're like, I emailed you 5 times. So
right. Yes.
So, yeah.
So, Lou, I see you out there. Thank you very much for joining us. I just want to say thank you. You've been a leader in the community for some time, and we really appreciate your leadership. Any advice, any thoughts for us this evening?
No, thank you for all that you're doing and your group and Tara and the city. I do appreciate the comments that you're taking neighborhood input into your modifications and evolution of the plan. So thank you for that. And I can see, the evolution of that from earlier maps to this map. And so thank you. And it's a democratic process. So thank everyone for their input.
Agree. Thank you very much. Anyone else out here?
Then just putting a question I'll quickly read there. Is there a way that you like to consider what a fair share of the trail per district is.
I'm
Equal
sorry, I
shares
didn't.
of budgets, shares of miles per capita within a district.
Oh, that's interesting.
I guess it's that.
I mean, that is possible to do. I mean, this is it's a geographical tool, right? And so we've strived to do balance around the city. So if you go on the website, you'll be able to see these presentations, well, beginning tomorrow. You'll be able to see these presentations for all 3 parts of the city that we've been in. So you get a sense of where we are, where we see opportunity. And we seek balance, but there are, as Lou described, sometimes people don't really want stuff, and so you're like, no, we're good, thank you, and that is an absolutely legitimate call. In which case, then the numbers in District 8, for example, although Northside Trail, that's going to give some good mileage there in District 8. So maybe, yeah, but great question. I haven't done it yet. That would be part of the report. And because at this point, we're just trying to take folks' temperature on how do they feel about these things, and then we'll dial some of those in. And then once they're dialed in, then in the report, then we really start running the analysis on that. But I mean, excellent question, Dan. Thank you. Anything else in there, Nico, did I miss?
No, I think we got everything. If you, as a reminder, we have the last poll question. If you wanted to
Oh yeah,
do it
let's do
before
the
we
last poll
lose
question.
everyone.
Oh yeah, that's right. I know. This is the grade. So yeah, so I need to have, this is, at the end of the year, the students get to grade the teacher. So we'll see if you give me an A or an F or something in between. And in general, it's not me, it's not just tonight, it's the whole process. Just to be clear, we're striving to do what we can, but let's do what we can to hit that mark.
We
I'm
almost get
anxious here.
everybody.
Like, what's it going to
So
be?
I'll go
Like
ahead
after
and
finals are
change
over and I'm
here.
worried about my grade. Am I going to graduate?
Make them wait just a little longer. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm sorry,
okay.
Sarah.
Okay.
I'm just
So we've
kidding.
got, I mean, that looks like a B maybe. I mean, B's get degrees for sure. So I might even get to graduate school with that. No, but this is good. And thank you. This is really your support, your involvement is crucial. Please share this information. We need you to participate now by spreading the word. Hey, this stuff is here, folks. This is going to potentially really change our city. Go find out what this is and get involved and share your opinion. Give us your ideas, etc. Again, let me put up our contact info. Oh, here it's at the end, isn't it? Yes. Okay, so those are my bosses there. They're the ones who I'm working for. Yes, ma'am. So that's how you can get a hold of us. Thank you all very much. Have a fantastic evening, and we look forward to seeing you out and about in the community.
Thanks.